All right, so we just started recording, and I want to welcome everyone to our spring 2022 advisory council meeting for the school year. Um, Again, I'm Mr. Adisa, the first, third, and fifth grade counselor, and my co-counselor.
I am Miss Busheen. I am doing kindergarten, second and fourth grade this year. And yeah, thank you for coming.
All right, so we are going to get started. There's going to be lots of talking on our end, but definitely if there's any confusion with what we're talking about, definitely just stop us and we'll definitely explain anything in further detail. So first, we want to kind of summarize everything that we've been able to accomplish this year at Honeytown Farms. So we've been able to provide SEL support, and SEL just stands for social emotional learning. And we've been able to do that by providing teachers added support, just meeting with them, trying to provide extra support with our morning caring schools meetings. And you might have heard that from students or your children. That's the very first thing they do in the mornings. We've done classroom lessons, and I know we try to get into the classrooms as much as we can. At the very least, at least once a quarter, up to a month each, once a month in each class throughout the school year, with the examples of problem solving, personal space, growth mindset. We've done small group counseling throughout the year. Again, on growth mindset, self-regulation, self-esteem, test anxiety, and attendance improvements. We've also done a lot of individual and crisis response counseling for our students. And we don't have the exact numbers, but it's definitely been a lot. We've done a lot of school-wide programs throughout the year, some being our Kindness Challenge, our bully prevention activities in the month of October, our Career Day, which took place in March, and our Loaves and Fishes food drive, which was back in December. And then we've been able to do our professional development to help continue helping us grow. Between that and leading PDs for the staff, whether it's for the SEL committee, doing collaborative work with the equity and bias team at our school, and attending conferences in North Carolina to help better ourselves and our understanding of how to be better counselors for our school. And so here's just a quick look at the topics that we were focusing a lot, some of the trends. So you can take a look at that. A lot of grief, a lot of worry throughout the school year, a lot of emotional regulation, and that don't really have an understanding of why these were the topics, but this is definitely just a little picture of, trends that we noticed when we were meeting with kids individually. And so I'm gonna let Amanda share specifically what we were working on. So we're gonna get deeper into the data portion of what we were doing this year.
Yes, so if you remember in the fall when we had our first meeting, we kind of shared, these are our goals and this is the kind of target group that we're gonna track. And then we also shared, like school-wide what we wanted to do for this school year. So my goal for the target group that I wanted to track was fourth grade English language learner students who actually showed up on the DF report from last school year. So they had more than one D. So that group had a total of 37 Ds, and there were about 18 students in that group that I was kind of like really targeting down and tracking. And so what I was able to accomplish this year, just specifically to serve those students, was having a small group on growth mindset. I really specifically in the fourth grade classrooms did a lot of lessons around learning and teamwork and testing anxiety and just like, what do you need to be successful kind of lessons. So it wasn't, obviously with the lessons, you're not just hitting those students that are in the group, you're teaching that to everybody. So everyone benefits, but the hope is that those target students improve as a result. Some other things that I was kind of a part of was helping facilitate something that we have at Huntington Farms. It's really cool. A professor at UNC Charlotte actually does the YET program, and it's all about based on the growth mindset and the YET word. And so they have a series of lessons. So it's kind of able to facilitate that with the fourth graders. Just, talking to parents, having consultations about these students, reaching out to these specific parents. And then something else kind of cool was that South Mex Spanish Honor Society students came and they served as like kind of mentor tutors to fourth grade English language learner students. So they came every Monday. So it's not necessarily something that I did, but I was part of like being the person that's saying like, I really want to help these kids. And then an ESL teacher was like, oh, well, we have this opportunity to work with South Mex Spanish students. So it just kind of worked out that I was like, oh, well, then can these kids work with them? And yeah, so that is what I did this year. And then if you go to the next slide, I also had a survey on their questions, but they just had their final YET lesson. So I'm still getting the final surveys back. But as of third quarter, that group of students only has 12 Ds on their final averages. So projecting that I have met my goal, which is awesome.
Awesome. And then I'll kind of go into my goal, which was a focus on attendance this year. And so my focus was with Hispanic males in the fifth grade currently, with an attendance rate below 95% last school year. I'll try to decrease the total number of absences of that subgroup by 20% from 817 absences down to 654 absences. And so some of the things that I was doing to kind of improve that, I did a small attendance improvement group with that group of students. And then also, if needed, wanted to do a check-in, check-out program that would help build that relationship with not only other staff members, but also with other kids at the school. Sending positive notes home to the parents to kind of reinforce their positive behaviors. And then just sharing the basics of the North Carolina attendance law. Because sometimes if you don't know, that you're even breaking a rule or a law. So that was the main things that I was doing this year. And the results of my goal this year, if you look at this, I had the students take a pre and post test. So you can kind of see just quickly looking that there were improvements in each of the questions that the students were doing. And I don't have the questions in front of me, but they were pretty much like, I like school. And it was a scaling question from like, rarely do I like school to 4 being like, I really always like school. And so you can kind of see based off of the questions that there was a positive response to the group that I did with those fifth grade students. And then kind of correlating to the number of absences. Obviously the school year is not over yet, but last year there was 817, but now you can see as of April 25th, there's only 414 absences among that group of Hispanic males in fifth grade. So really exciting to see that with only like 7 weeks of school left. I hopefully don't foresee 400 absences in the next 7 weeks. So I'm hoping to say that that goal would also be met by myself too, which is really exciting.
Thank you for the applause. I see it. So we have a few other like little pieces of data to show, because I think sometimes with us targeting down with this specific group of students with our one goal, sometimes it feels like, well, what else are you doing with all the other kids? So we really wanted to be intentional this year and show that the other things that we are doing are also effective. And so we're going to go into that now, that kind of portion. So this is the results, data results from a unit of lessons that I taught in second grade. I taught this unit in second grade, which was 3 lessons back to back to back on the same kind of topic, problem solving. And this came about based on teachers and the school panorama survey, which shows the students' strengths in their social emotional skills. But the second grade teachers specifically were saying, you know, like our kids just really need some support, knowing how to handle their emotions, knowing what to do when a problem happens, because what they were really reacting to problems and not solving them well. So with the pre and post test that I did, it shows some improvement with the questions that I asked. Like, I know what to do to solve a problem. I know how to follow the rules. I know how to calm myself down when things happen. You know, there is some improvement from the second graders with their knowledge of just general, like, how do I solve problems with other kids, or how do I solve problems for myself? We went into like, if it's a big problem, you need to go and talk to a safe adult. And who is your safe adult that you can talk to? And we really focused on all the different ways to solve all different kinds of problems. And then, you know, also just to show like how our work improves certain areas, which, you know, we really try to look at, does what we do improve attendance? Does it improve academic? Does it improve discipline data? And the second graders, like, even though the teachers were saying they were having these issues, it wasn't an issue where they were getting lots of referrals. So I chose to look at their MAP scores for academic. And so I chose the target group of students who were not proficient on their MAP scores. So 82% of the students in second grade were like scored between I think it's, I'm not sure how MAP scores is, like 1, 2, or 3. I think it's just a 1 and a 2 in the MAP scores. And as of their spring MAP scores, which they just took Monday, yesterday, the group that actually took the test yesterday was that is not proficient decreased. So some improvement there. And I see a question about the second grade. How did I choose to focus on second grade, and was it based on teacher request? So I am the second grade counselor, so that's kind of why I picked second grade. And then I think it was more so teacher request, because I think the teachers were telling me the same thing over and over, if that makes sense. Like, I kept hearing different classes, and they were all coming together, the teachers in planning, saying, my kids are struggling with this. My kids are having a lot of conflict. My kids don't know what to do. My kids are really upset when it's something that's really, really little. And I just kept hearing that kind of stuff. And so that's why I decided to do a series of lessons and just really, really teach this skill. And I enjoyed doing it this way. I've never done a unit that was like, every time I'm coming in the classroom, I'm teaching about the same kind of thing. And I think it really helped them to learn those skills. So I hope that answered your question.
All right, and so the classroom lesson that I focused on, this is highlighting a 5th grade lesson I did with an assertive communication lesson I did with my 5th graders. And so you can see the pre and post test results of that lesson, which shows really good response to the kids that did the survey that day. And the reason why I did this lesson, is kind of born out of a teacher request as well, where the teachers were just kind of reporting the kids' inability to really just communicate and just communicate appropriately. And so this lesson really just kind of touched on being assertive, sticking up for yourself, and just being a good advocate for yourself. And so you can see that the kids did respond positively to the lesson, were able to answer the questions correctly. You see that percentage jumped pretty high on question 1 and question 3. And then the correlation, we like Amanda said, we like to correlate what we do into how it correlates, whether it's achievement, whether it's attendance or discipline. And so I looked at the 5th grade reading map test. And so you can see that the number of 5th grade students from this fall were 43, and it dropped down to 31 in the spring. So not really sure why the number dropped, not sure what the correlation really is or what impact my lesson had in regards to this subgroup of students, but it was definitely just something for me to kind of look at and pay attention to.
And then also, and just to go back to the classroom lessons before we move on, that's just kind of a snippet of the classroom lessons that we do. Just like the annual student outcome goal, we don't necessarily track the data for every single lesson that we teach, but we did try to see, track the data for certain ones just to really see, like, is this making an impact? Is this meaningful? And so those were the ones that we decided to really target, but we taught lessons on a variety of other topics as well. And then we also do small groups with students. So students are invited to small groups, and parent permission is also, we request parent permission. A permission slip goes home to be in a small group, just to let parents know, we invited your child, but oftentimes kids love being in small groups and they love just like having extra time with us. So I did a small group with 4th grade students on self-regulation, and this was born straight from our panorama data, looking at the skills that our students had strengths in. And I noticed that my 4th grade students, their biggest need was emotional regulation. And so this group was 8 weeks long, and we really, really focused on just back to the basics, identifying your feelings. What is it like when you feel different feelings? Again, that size of the problem thing that I did with 2nd grade, also taught that with the 4th grade group. Just how do you react to different sizes of problems? And these are kind of my questions in that survey that you see on the screen, but those are all the different things that we taught. And how do you manage your emotions? What do you do when you need help managing your emotions? What do you do when you need to use a different strategy? And we went through all of that. And so it looks like the data is a little bit all over the place, but it seems like, especially learning things like what their triggers were, I think, they really improved in that area, and how to just identify, is this a small problem? Do I really need to blow up and get angry at it? Or is this, we worked really hard on those skills. And then, I tracked this specific group's average score for their MAP test. So it wasn't like a group of students, what they if they scored in a certain range, but I actually got each student's MAP score. And so the average before I taught the group was 186, and their average jumped to a 193. So all of the kids in the group had some improvement on their reading MAP score, which is exactly what we want to see.
All right. And so down to me, I'm going to highlight a third grade group that I did worked with on regards to self-esteem. And again, like Amanda, this topic was pulled straight from our panorama, just the trends, and that our third graders were really rating themselves low in the area of self-esteem. And so I was working with these students over a 6-week period, and kind of just looking at some of the pre and post test results. You can see a little bit of change, improvement in the first 2 questions, and a slight dip in that last one. So some things to celebrate for sure, and some things to kind of continue analyzing to see how to improve that for the third graders. And then I also looked at the MAP scores for those specific students, and their average score for that group of students, third grade students, was 169.88, and then you can see it, that group jumped up to 182.33. So again, I'm really hoping, can't really say it's a causation, but I'm going to say it's a correlation of my group hopefully was a good influence in helping them feel more confident and being able to be more successful on their MAP test, which the students just took a couple weeks ago. All right, so that was a lot to share. I didn't know does anybody have any questions or comments they want to kind of throw out there before we keep moving? Well, thank you. Appreciate the shout out. Appreciate it. All right, I'm gonna keep going. So as you can see, we're at the point in the school year where we're trying to wind down the school year, but we also got to keep moving forward and start thinking about next school year. And so what myself and Ms. Bouchine and our student services team have been working on is trying to bring back a focus on practices for our behavior interventions for the school. And so right now we're trying to figure out the best way to do school-wide interventions or ideas that will help bolster behaviors. Not saying that we have a ton of behavior issues, but it's one thing to definitely continue making sure that we have good things in place so it doesn't become an issue. We're also looking to strengthening our SEL instruction. Our teachers are doing a great job with running the morning meetings at this point, and we're hoping to build off of that going into next year and giving some more guidance for our teachers. So each student will start their day in a positive space and being able to verbalize and build those connections, not only with other kids in their class, but hopefully with just the school in general. And then we're also going to continue our counseling program in building our supplemental support and kind of promoting that out to help those students that need that additional support. So right now we have a couple of go-to kind of things that we do with our students, whether it's check in, check out, which is kind of like our mentoring program for students that need additional support, but also providing additional ideas and interventions that might look different for other students. So we're hoping to improve on that going into next year as well. All right, and so that is pretty much our presentation. if you guys have any questions, we are definitely open to that, or even just our school counseling program in general. I know it's a lot of information to kind of digest, but like I said, we're open to any feedback or anything in general comments that you guys might have.
Right. Any ideas of things that you've maybe noticed and like we didn't even mention that was something that we could support? We're open to all feedback.
Yeah, so I had a question about the school bullying actually as a focus. So I don't know how many other parents are kind of struggling with this, but that's one of our struggles right now is the school bullying. And I know that there are quite a few, speaking to other parents, they're going through similar situations. And I guess my concern is a lot of students don't have the proper education to identify exactly school bullying and what it is. That or there's a blatant disregard for it. But is there going to be any courses down the road or some type of learning and instruction that can be given to kids based on grade level so that there's an understanding of this action classifies as bullying? So I know that there's a sheet of paper that needs to be signed for a student regarding following school policies, but taking it a step further because of the damages of school bullying, are there any courses that are going to be implemented down the road that it's more a hands-on approach, teaching to children before an incident happens?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And I can say CMS requires actually it's towards I think it's in October, or it's in the first quarter of the school year, are harassment lessons that touch on bullying and harassment. And it's for all students, K through 5. And I know Ms. Graham could probably speak on, that lesson. I mean, she might not remember, but the teachers have to sign off on them doing it, and the principal has to sign off on the teachers admitting that they taught that lesson at the beginning of the school year. Now, granted, it's only one lesson. And I know, we try to highlight and educate as well during October, which is Bully Prevention Month, trying to, share the true definition of bullying, because I think there is a lot of confusion of what is bullying versus, kids picking on each other versus harassment.
Or behavior, right.
So, and I think like what you were saying too, I think the biggest thing that I think we could definitely look into is how do we teach kids to advocate for themselves if they're a victim, or if they even witness, if they're like a bystander, trying to teach our kids to be more to be upstanders, kind of what we try to tell kids to be whenever they notice that kind of stuff, to report that, whether it's to their parents or to their teacher or a trusted adult. But I know, to kind of answer your question really shortly though, I mean, they definitely do something at the beginning, but I definitely don't, like, I see a need to maybe like revisit it as the school year goes on too.
Great, thank you.
Can I add to that a little bit? Yes, we do the harassment lessons at the beginning of the year, as Mr. Deesa said, and this is something they get every single year as they're in elementary school. As far as our SEL lessons go, the social emotional learning, we do touch on things like what is it like to be kind, or what is teasing? How does that feel? Have you been teased? We talk about friendship. We talk about different elements of things that would make you a better person towards your peers. But we don't use the word bullying in that. So I do agree that maybe if we brought in more lessons about being a bystander, or how could you prevent bullying if you see it happening, just incorporating what we taught at the beginning of the year into those lessons with kindness and teasing, that might be a better way to keep that throughout the year and refresh. But we do touch on things like teasing, joking, being kind, what is it like to be a friend, to kind of help decrease those behaviors. But maybe if we brought up those words, harassment, bullying, a little bit more with those lessons, that might be helpful.
Yes, definitely. But I'm sure it's also grade dependent too, with the explanation of things to the children.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you for adding on to that, Ms. Graham. I think, and to answer your question about, is it developmentally like every grade level? Yeah, like in kindergarten, they're probably not really going to address like bullying, but they are going to talk about those basic, like, how do we share and be kind? But I think as the students get older, it is more direct in those lessons, and even in the social emotional curriculum. I think there is more in the 4th and 5th grade, specifically, like those lessons they do have a week on bullying, and talking about like what it is and how do we help it, but it doesn't go like super in depth. Even then, it's more of a conversation of kindness in our classroom, which is the foundation, right? Like if we can't be kind to each other first, I think. But yeah, thank you for that. Are there any other questions or feedback?
Right. Well, I want to thank you guys again for participating in this group this year. We will be doing this again in the fall. So I know Miss Loriana, you're moving on to middle school. So definitely best of luck with your journey into middle school. But teachers, if you guys want to do this again, we'll definitely be doing this again in the fall. And yeah, just want to thank you guys for just hearing us out and being supports for the school counseling program at Honeytown Farms.
Thank you for everything you guys do.